It is really about ensuring that you have somebody that's not caught up in all the fires and all the gotta minutes and all of the, hours and hours and hours of meetings. They're strategically focused in just the meetings and just the conversations and just the tasks that will help them solve that problem they were brought in to work on.
Laura, I'm so excited to talk to you today about your white paper, The Shift to Fractional Leadership. It was really well done. And I can't wait to put in the show notes the link so that everybody can grab it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it as well. It was a lot of fun because it was a collaboration. I guess we could call it a international collaboration because my co-author is from Canada. But I also pulled in some really great resources from T360's Talent Division and the Entrepreneur's Boardroom and a company called Sestato. And so it was really fun to just work and collaborate and research with a group of dynamic professionals and explore this evolving concept and resource that people are using.
Well, I think it's so interesting, both the topic and the timing. So for those people who might not be familiar with it, can you just start off by explaining what fractional leadership is?
Yeah. So, really it's a paradigm shift in terms of staffing. It's a strategic solution to today's complex challenges. Fractional leadership is experienced professionals that are providing part-time, high-level expertise without the cost of full-time employment. So it builds on the foundation of gig workers, if you're familiar with like Fiverr or Upwork, and then also the world of virtual assistants. So it's become very normalized to hire just for the job or the task that you need to fill at certain levels of the organization. But the concept of bringing in people who have traditionally served in the C-suite or upper levels of the org chart in an organization, coming in on that same sort of a fractional basis is a newer concept, at least in the real estate industry and some of the other ones I'm working with. Although if we get outside of the US into other areas, or we get outside of this industry where I predominantly serve, it's much more normal to see fractional professionals involved. In fact, I'm part of a group called Fractionals United, and there's over 14,000 members in that group working across the globe. So it's out there. It's still just not as broadly known. And sometimes, even though the fractional executive is fully enmeshed with the team and the other full-time people on the team, they may operate a little bit more behind the scenes, which is why I feel like maybe it isn't as broadly recognized.
I see. So why real estate? Like why? Yeah. Why now? Why real estate now?
Okay. So I think our industry is really great that agents take the lead. They are entrepreneurs at heart. They have their arms around their world of buyers and sellers, and so they often take the lead. And then we see the brokerage owner following, and then we see the brand following, and then we see the technology partners that want to serve them following. And so VAs, or virtual assistants, have reshaped how our real estate business has accessed talent for a long time now. But then the COVID pandemic completely normalized virtual. We saw the gig economy grow from 27.7 million in 2024. And we're anticipating, or that it grew to that amount, 27.7 million by 2024. And then the global workforce is estimated to be at 8.4 million by 2028. So we're seeing this really massive change since COVID and the normalization of virtual. But real estate specifically has been in a bit of a period of change, I think, right? We all are a little bit used to seeing layoffs now with some of the larger brands and the technology partners. And we know now through a lot of research and analysis and watching how that has impacted companies that it is outdated and counterproductive. And so if we can develop a workforce model that scales up and down with the market shifts so that we don't have to do those mass layoffs, it's really going to help retain that expertise at organizations.
Yeah.
And our industry of real estate is going to continue to face headwinds. We know this, right? We have an inventory shortage that is not going to get solved overnight. We are in the middle still of a number of different debates and lawsuits and challenges around clear cooperation, and all these other major components that our industry has stood on are being shaken down and tested, and add on top of that artificial intelligence and how quickly everything is evolving and adapting. And you really start to see how pulling in experts just for the most pressing problem that you have today. Maybe there's a new competitor that's entered your market. Maybe there's a big shift because of a lawsuit or something that's happened, and you need to make some quick changes. You can pull in experts to solve that change and then leave them, even if it's just 5 hours a month, right? So maybe you pull them in and they're doing 20 hours a week and helping bring artificial intelligence into your marketing and into your CRM systems and how you're interacting with your prospects. And as you get those things settled, maybe that time drops down and they become more of an advisor that's just touching base with you on a monthly basis or something. But you can then ramp them back up when the next challenge hits and you have to evolve and adapt. And so there's never been a better time than with the headwinds and the constant evolution and the opportunities that people are trying to grasp in real estate to start exploring this change from the traditional employment models.
It's such an interesting thing. And I don't, having worked for a brokerage for a long time, and then, a large real estate brand as well for a long time, I don't think it would have ever come into the conversation, or the idea never would have come across our desk, right?
Yep.
But it is sort of brilliant, especially when you think of, some of the challenges that brokerages in particular are having. So, but there are so many, right? You just pointed out a bunch of them. Like, if I'm a brokerage trying to maintain market share, especially an independent brokerage, right, that doesn't have the power of a larger brand behind me, what are some of the indicators that I should be looking at to determine if a fractional leadership role would help?
Yeah, I mean, you can talk to the mid-level leaders in your organization today and see how they're feeling about things, because it may not be applicable to you, but what we found when we look at human resource organizations and groups and their studies is that 70% of executives are ill-equipped to develop their mid-level leaders. So they may be fantastic at running their organization, or you may be fantastic at running your organization, but the world is evolving so quickly that while you are busy managing and running all the components that you have to take care of to keep your wheels on your bus and keep it moving forward, you need to have, while the bus is careening down the highway, somebody underneath the hood working on the engine and changing the oil while it's, you can't stop. And so they don't have the time to develop those mid-level leaders with some of those skills, like artificial intelligence, or like the way that marketing is having to evolve to keep up with the changes in social media and preferences for video and all those other things. So if you're not able to develop your mid-level leaders yourself, and then talk to them and say, okay, management team, my core crew, right? How are you doing? Because what the stats show is that 75% of managers are already overwhelmed with their current workload. So it sounds great in theory to say, I'm going to take these people out of their daily tasks and I'm going to go get them trained on some of these new things. And I've got to get them trained on how we're adjusting or evolving clear cooperation, or how we're pulling in AI, or how, any of these different areas. But the reality is 75%. 3 out of 4 are reporting that they're already overwhelmed just keeping up with their daily tasks. So much better to bring in somebody that is a specific expert to help both bring in that operational support, rechange the structure, and then also train your people, right? This is not just layering on costs that you expect to keep forever. It is about enmeshing somebody in the team, usually for 6, 12, 18 months or longer, because they're really going to get involved and understand the inner workings of your organization. And then they're going to make those changes for you. And by the way, train your full-time people so that they're better in their job. They're less frustrated. They're less overwhelmed. It's, it's a holistic sort of therapy process, if you will.
Yeah. And I love that because, we know this to be true of broker owners, especially those that are, have more of a mid-sized brokerage. They just, oftentimes they have their own sales business. Right. So trying to next level their people, their staff, which is critically important because at the end of the day, those people are serving the agents in the company. Those, in essence, are the clients. And so you want your staff to be as educated, as nimble, as, effective as they absolutely can be. And at the same time, be able to continue to operate at a higher level. And it's also good for retention, I would imagine.
Oh, 100%, right? Because you're bringing in somebody that has an outside perspective. And unlike other full-time executives, your fractional leaders are unencumbered by the need to maintain long-term alliances or navigate delicate internal relationships. So they can identify and recommend necessary changes more decisively. And I find this quite often, right? Like you're bringing in somebody that has that decades of experience with tact and navigating those personal sort of delicate situations in a way that they can flush out the problem that's holding your company back. It might be a person, it might be a process. They can start to pull out information from staff that might be sitting back and feeling like no matter what they say, it's not going to matter anyway. So you're really able to start working around those dynamics that often hold back an organization because people want to maintain their friendships. We're all in real estate because it's a relationship business. At some point, we were all really hyper focused on that. And you don't want to lose that, but you definitely need to bring in outside perspectives that can help you shake up and break down some of those walls and barriers and old static information that's holding you back. I think it's equally important to note that, fractional leaders are not caught up in the cycle of putting out fires. So they operate with clear direction and objectives that allows them to stay hyper-focused on the tasks that will drive results. Mm-hmm. The companies that have been most resistant when I approach them with doing fractional work versus coming on full-time, it's because they're afraid of that responsibility, because there is a responsibility from the organization to clearly define. This is my pain point. This is what we need to work to solve. This is the time frame we want to do it in, right? And a great fractional professional is going to guide you through that process. They're going to ask the questions. They're going to uncover what needs to be solved first, because this isn't a Band-Aid operation. It is digging into the root cause and solving the long pervasive issues that have been there. But we are used to wearing a lot of hats, right? If you've been in the real estate industry, everybody's sort of like these great entrepreneurial and excited minds that like go out and want to solve problems, but they also don't like constraints. Mm-hmm. And so having to take responsibility to ensure that I've hired this person for this specific task and respect those boundaries. And when they, push back and say, no, I'm not going to go help with your personal schedule, because that isn't what I was brought here for, right? Like that's a separate engagement, and let me refer you to somebody, because I do that quite often. It is really about ensuring that you have somebody that's not caught up in all the fires and all the gotta minutes and all of the, hours and hours and hours of meetings. They're strategically focused in just the meetings and just the conversations and just the tasks that will help them solve that problem they were brought in to work on. So
it sounds brilliant. Now let's talk about putting it into practice. So I'm a broker owner. You had this great example in the white paper of a broker owner, a brokerage that was a luxury brokerage, and they wanted to next level their presence in the market. And so they hired a fractional CMO. Talk to me about that process and the comparison of hiring versus, hiring a fractional, and sort of what the result was.
Sure. So, I mean, I feel almost like this would be one of those funny, like reverse interviews. Because Christine, aren't you, in fact, like
Yes.
you do some fractional marketing things, right? So, I know that we have our paper that we put together, and there are so many different ways that it can be pulled together or approached depending on the size of the company and the problems or the needs that they have. But I'll just cover the one that we provided in the paper, and I will say this was an example. It wasn't a real specific example, but it was pulling in from, 4 or 5 different engagements and sort of creating a comprehensive snapshot of what that could look like. And that was through Sistato. So Sistato is a company that historically has provided global support personnel or virtual assistants from both stateside or other areas across the globe. And they had started branching out into the fractional space. I've done some work and had placements through them. And so in this example, in their traditional approach, they would have hired a full-time chief marketing officer at around 150,000. Instead, with the modern approach, they're hiring somebody for 60,000. So already we see some sort of a cost savings there. They wanted to build out an entire team because they were going to take what had been done outside of the organization previously and start creating and building it internally to take better ownership of that process. But rather than hiring 3 marketing hires at a cost of 180, they hire some managed services through a virtual assistant staffing platform for 60,000. They can keep the strategy and execution budget relatively the same, and they have some existing marketing team members that will stay the same in cost, but you have to realize that those team members are going to be developing their skills under this expert leader that they're building in so that they have better capacity to do their job and have more impact. So same cost, higher benefit. In that sort of a scenario, maybe the CMO fractional person is there for the first 3 months, highly engaged, and then they move to just a weekly hours of support and guidance to keep sort of directing. So they're not leaving, they're just shifting and evolving. And then maybe they reach a point where they have now brought in a fractional AI technology specialist, and the CMO hours might go up again as they start to evolve and layer in these different ways that they can start using AI in their marketing. So the benefit of that then, right? So we look at total cost. It was a $240,000 savings.
Wow.
And in fact, they're getting better results because that fractional CMO was tasked with a very specific thing. It was building out this marketing managed service team of VAs, making sure they understand exactly what their roles are for, design, for the automation components, for the other strategic deliverables that they set forth. And then they step back and the fee and the cost drops down until that moment that there's another flare up or change or unexpected market shift or unexpected competitor or new opportunity that they have to expand through M&A growth. And so they step back in and apply themselves more intensely for a period of time. And then, so it's a wonderful way to sort of evolve and ebb and flow.
You talked 3 months and kind of, pulling back a little bit on average. How long is a fractional leader, intensely involved? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months, 9 months?
It's typically longer unless they have something like this where it's a very specific, like we're going to be setting up managed services through a VA component, and we want you to come in and help direct them and establish this and set it up. I typically will recommend that we have a 30-day onboarding period where all I'm doing is interviewing and talking to key members of their team. So because I am traditionally operationally focused, I really need to get to know everybody across marketing, technology, finance, their sales, all of the different departments, because operations is what syncs it all together. So the onboarding process can be a little bit faster if it is a very specific marketing engagement or technology engagement, or there's a specific scope. But I typically spend at least 30 days just doing interviews and calls and getting to know the people and asking questions and gaining insights. Then I have a 30-day period where I am building out proposals and pathways of which direction we can take to have the most impact up front and where I think the root cause is. So then I'll lay out like a 4-month plan following that. So it's about a 60-day onboarding period, but gathering insights that will be valuable and used by that organization for years to come through that interview and exploration process. And then a 4-month, I always do a minimum 6 months, just because I feel like it takes me that long to have a significant impact and to see the return for the money they've invested. And then we sit down and discuss, like, do we need more hours? Do we need less hours? Do we want to move into this next thing, piece of the engagement, and have that sort of reset for another 6 months?
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like you need that much time just to sort of, find the door kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
So you actually talk about a 90-day test engagement as a starting point. So that's like the 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what you were just talking about? Or can you kind of explain what that is?
Absolutely. Sure. Because, I'll ask for a 6-month commitment because the concept is new for people. Some of them just aren't quite there yet, right? So in 90 days, a fractional professional can come in, do those interviews, understand the team, start to assess and provide different roadmaps. And then in the 3rd month, deliver these different strategic roadmaps. And then they could either go outside and hire somebody different, or they could decide that they don't have the, time or resources, but at least they have something that is a solid playbook that they could either try to implement and carry out with their existing team and infrastructure, or it will give them that vision of what's possible so that they can sort of select. So I try to give them 3 or 4 different pathways that they could choose to follow and expand to go to the next level. And, hopefully by the end of that 90 days, they've already seen that the benefit of having somebody with the outside perspective and having worked at an executive level across a number of different companies can bring to the table that is fresh and new and, really helping them prepare to evolve and stay ahead of the competition.
That makes a lot of sense. What are the most common mistakes you see companies make when it comes to hiring a fractional leader?
If that fractional leader isn't stepping into a leadership role right out of the gate, helping guide the conversation, helping explain the process, then they should have some red flags. Right? Because the difference between a consultant and a fractional, one might be right for you and the other not right, but you should be able to tell a difference from the very first conversation. So are they really just focused on what do you want me to show up and do? Or are they asking the questions of where are you at today? What are you hoping to get out of this, right? It's a different level in how you anticipate that professional being embedded with the team. Mm-hmm. If they're fractional, they will be at key meetings. They will be serving more as an advisor and really enmeshed. Whereas a consultant is, you're telling them exactly, that it's like a very structured sort of set thing. There isn't that sort of creativity and curiosity component. It is solving one specific thing. You will definitely have an end date with a consultant. A fractional leader, you should have a more broader scope, which is here's what we're going to do in our first 90 days or our first 6 months. But there isn't a defined and it ends on this date. It is we renew and renegotiate and discuss for what that next 6 months look like, right? But it isn't an end date. And then a consultant can be full-time. A fractional is typically not. So if you have somebody that is coming in to be fractional and saying, I'm going to be 40 hours a week, I don't know that I see that as the best use of the concept. I think that it should be, even if it's an intensive 20 or 30 hours a week for a while, because you're trying to launch something or get something going, the concept should be articulated up front that it is it can flow up and down and ebb up and down with the hours based on the needs of the organization. So if somebody's coming in and saying, yeah, I'm going to be fractional and you need to give me 40 hours a week and it's going to be, then that's really not the test ground. Have I seen people move into full-time and switch to that W-2 and switch to the benefits package? Absolutely, right? I think that we've all seen that. The beauty of it is think of it as almost a testing ground to see if somebody's that right fit. So even if your organizational values say, I only want people that I know are 100% here with me all the time, you can start with fractional and articulate, my goal would be to see you move into a full-time W-2 role with all of the other perks and benefits and the full benefit package, as long as you're articulating that up front. Because there are some people that are not interested in that. Like, I would never say never to it, but the reality is, if you look at my resume, every 3 years I've moved because I love to get into things, fix all of the structural foundational issues that have existed for a long time. And then they're like, oh, this is so great. And they start like trying to have me fill in and all these other, just like, let's keep her here and busy. Well, I don't want to just be busy. I want to be effective. So like, for some people, fractional is a way for them to provide the most value that they can at key stress points.
Yes.
And then move on to the next pressing problem.
Yes.
And they're not always very good at just sort of sitting and punching a clock and like trying to fill their day in with meetings, right? So a couple other quick things. A fractional executive can represent the company and quite often do. So they would still, this might be an interim person. We had somebody leave this key role. We're bringing in this interim fractional leader. So they may speak on behalf of the company. They may represent the company in meetings with internal staff. And they will most likely lead a team. So they will have other people within the organization that they are directing, because they're not going to be doing the nuts and bolts, but they will be directing the core people in your team, because that's part of the process. They're training your team to be better at their jobs, bringing in that outside expertise to help with the coaching along the way.
So brilliant. All right. So if I wanted to hire a fractional leader, where would I go? How would I find one?
So I've mentioned, a couple of my partners that participated in the paper. There is T3 Talent does not currently do fractional placements, but they have a broad list of people that they can refer to, right? So if somebody comes in looking for a W-2 and is something they want to explore, or if they have a group that hires them to fill a strategic vacancy, then they may explore having fractional. So there's some resources there through T360's talent division and Dan Bro. I work with a group called the Entrepreneurs Boardroom that is led by Sajog Patel, and he has some core staff that are W-2 that he places with fractional, but then he has people like me who are independent fractional professionals that are part of his boardroom. So he has a wide net of people who are operating in this capacity, who may not want to like raise a big flag and shout it from the top of a mountain, but they have, 20, 30 years experience in these executive leadership roles. And they're sort of one step out towards retirement, but still wanting to really contribute value where they can.
Yeah.
And so he plugs them in. He likes to work on like these transition or turnaround sort of things. So you have a key person that's left, and rather than filling that with another body and that's cost for a full-time person, he can bring in a team of maybe 6 people to help clean up, reassess, rebuild. And then when they get ready to hire for that spot that was vacated, that team steps out. And that person steps into a whole different world than the one that the last person left, because all these things have been restructured. The foundation is there. They can hit the ground running and be successful in their new role. And it gives that company time to find the ideal and perfect leader for that vacancy. So he's been really effective in that. And let's see, Roll Sestato, I mentioned them already. They do a lot with the virtual staffing. But they have found that it's more effective, especially if they're building out a large team of virtual customer support or marketing support or technology support, that they have, at least for a period of 6 months, a fractional executive to help establish that department and those teams and oversee them and make sure that it's a positive experience across the board. So, I love referring people. I have spent too many years, being the president or the leader of a company and having to wear all the hats. And now I know, I love operations. I love the things that most people in this industry don't want to do. So there aren't very many people out there like me that are like, ooh, forensic auditing. I want to dig into the numbers super deep and figure out why the data is in silos and not getting where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so why would I spend my time on marketing functions, even if I have done them, or the financial functions, even if I've done them, when I know amazing professionals that I can refer to. So that's the concept behind my company, Let Go Coco, is just the consultants collaborative and letting go of the stuff you don't want to do. And so I enjoy referring people as much as I enjoy working with them.
That is awesome. I'm always talking about lean into your zone of genius and delegate everything out, outsource everything, because you're not going to be good at it anyway. So you might as well do what you love, right?
That's right. 100%.
Okay. So as we wrap up, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you.
Hey.
You ready?
I think so.
What's a leadership trait that you think is undervalued today?
Listening.
That one's a really good. I mean, yes.
Simple. That's it.
Yes. One thing you wish more brokers or business owners understood about transformation?
That it's okay to ask for help.
Love it. The most rewarding part of the work that you're doing right now?
Oh, wow. The most rewarding. There's so many. I would say just the expansion of my sphere and network. Yeah, I've got to meet so many incredible people, right? Like, because I'm not stuck in this one bubble of one organization, like just having that opportunity to connect. I made 100 phone calls in 90 days to different executives and people across the industry. And it was so fun, like hearing what they see as their opportunity areas and the challenges, and just having that ability to be really high level and understand all these different perspectives. It's been really incredibly rewarding.
That's awesome. And representing yourself the whole way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where can people find you?
LinkedIn is always the easiest. And then I have a link from there to my individual sites and pages. I will admit, Christine, I need to probably hire you, because my business has been predominantly, as I said, my sphere and my referrals from other people and working with a few partners. So I've been very lazy about my online presence, but LinkedIn is always good. And I do have, although it's clunky and ugly, there's a wonderful way that you can connect and reach me through that.
Well, we'll definitely have to talk after this.
That'd be great.
The last thing I want to ask you is to finish this sentence.
Okay.
Know, like, trust is
necessary.
Yeah. It's everything you're doing right now, right?
Right. Well, and it's the foundation of the real estate industry. Not that I only work in real estate. And I think if you talk to people in the construction industry, in the virtual staffing industry, like all these other ones that I'm working, it still all comes down to the same thing, which is we are humans. And you can have amazing technology and incredible systems, but if you don't have the people that are really committed to that process, to that company, to that technology, like it's not going to work. And we should be able to know, like, and trust the people that we spend our time with. I happen to love working. I always have. I mean, my son is great, and I let the village raise him, and he's fabulous because of it, because I didn't want to completely step out of working at any point in my life. And I spend more time with work people than I do family people. And so I think it's really important to know, like, and trust the people that we interact with and not waste, so that we're not wasting our precious minutes and hours on this planet.
The people that we're investing our time. And I think that comes with age, Laura. It's like somehow we had to, get through those early years of growing our careers to really understand, it's really okay to spend your time at work with people that you know, like, and trust, because that's what makes it all fun.
And don't you see that as when I look at the people who have intentionally moved into fractional roles or building their own companies, whether it's consulting or fractional, it's because they've just said, I want to have the power of choice in selecting who I spend my time with. And I don't want to be at the whim of, somebody forcing these interactions or relationships or these sort of things that are not productive for my mental health or really physical and everything that's trickle down. So being able to select who we invest our time, energy, and love and care and brilliance into is really powerful.